Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for all things virtual cycling and virtual racing. And of course, you're joined today by me, your host for commentary, Mark, as I get into the Halloween spirit of things as we tackle Season 2, Week 2 of Triple T for the uninitiated team time trial in IndieVelo. And speaking of, where will we see our contenders racing today? Well, we are taking on the 2 Lake Loop in IndieVelo's proprietary Velo Island. It's a 21.3 kilometer course. However, 1 kilometer of said course is lead-in, so a 20.3 kilometer race technically with 144 meters of climbing, so relatively flat, but still some nice pinchy, punchy climbs to really bring out the rolliers and put a sting into the quads and the glutes of the sprinters among us. And that said, let's take a look at the teams that will be contending today. So we have Race 3R Wiggles, and we have the Australia umbrella of teams, including Dingoes, Koalas, PD, CC, and Wombats. We also have Team Electric Spirit Co., currently the team to beat, and France RGT. And no, that does not stand for Road Grand Tours, that stands for Riders Grand du Tour, I believe. And then we also have West London VR WLVR, and we have the OTR Virtual Events umbrella of teams, Black, Blue, Eureka, UV, and Wicked. So, with that out of the way, let's take a look at where things currently stand as we begin to get ready on the course, so we can see our teams there ready to gun off of that start line. So with 13 seconds left to go, why don't you drop in the comments both on YouTube or on Facebook, depending on how you're watching us, who you think is going to take the crown today. Alright, so we are off. And we can see there that Electric Spirit Co., they're a 3-man team, a 3-rider team today. Looks like they are down a rider. And we have Matt James really gunning off the start there, bringing up the speed as they're working that tension through the crank arms, getting settled in for a high intensity effort. Currently the team to beat, as we have previously discussed. So Matt James currently the lead. It looks like they're forming a little tiny pace line, ready for Zeb to take the lead in a second, it appears like. And currently fairly close, a little bit of elasticity with the other Matthew in the back there. Oh, it looks like I'm mistaken. It looks like Matthew's going to be the one to go in for the lead position, the engine position, if you will, the one who has taken the air resistance to give draft benefit to the other two. And look, I'm proven wrong once again. Zeb taking the lead. Matthew following. It did look like Matthew was preparing to pull around in a scorpion tail maneuver. And we are currently in with OTR Black. We've got Kevin Barclay from Scotland there, currently on the lead. A couple of great team kits there. So pulling just over 47 kilometers an hour. And we're currently following Zoderberg here with, we can see his wattage there. So if you wish to follow along, you can look at no further than the top center of your screen. We can see the BPM on the left-hand side of that soap bar there. We can see in the middle of said soap bar the wattage numbers, and to the right-hand side again of that soap bar, the revolutions per minute or cadence, to put it in a more universal phraseology. Australia Dingoes also pulling very strong above that 47 kilometers an hour mark. And we've got Chris Morgan here. These are all familiar names if you follow Chase the Yellow both on IndieVelo and on Wahoo RGT earlier this year. And a lot of very powerful rolliers and some very powerful sprinters in this team as well, including Ash Yelland, Noel, Scott Francis, and the like. Going for more of a bunchy, more of a peloton approach rather than the pace line, so evenly distributing that draft benefit, but also bringing up the effort that people are going to have to put in. Admittedly, less effort on formation, so you can focus more on really firing through those crank arms. If you wish to follow along with cadence, of course you can look at the person we're currently following, which is Noel. And how can you tell who we're currently following? Well, you just look to the small kind of square burger menu style bar on the center right of your screen. The name that is highlighted in green is who we're currently following. But if you wish to get an idea, if you have a somewhat educated eye, if you're also a cyclist, of what is the cadence of other people in the group, in the bunch, well, look only at the animation of the avatar. So long as everyone has a cadence meter attached, whether that's a Bluetooth Ant Plus attachable, removable one that you can attach to your crank arm, or whether it's the baked-in cadence meter of a smart trainer, it will feed data into the game, and the cadence that is put in is reflected in the animation. However, we are now following OTR UV. Tony Lake, again another very familiar name to you, is taking the lead right now, but beginning to ease off a bit as James Ogilvie takes over, really pushing this pace line forward, and a nice pace line it is. But a little bit of elasticity in the back there as Tony dropped off, maybe a little bit too much of the power, but seems to be having no trouble connecting back on. Great stuff, guys. And OTR Blue, Andy Wood-S, Roger Hughes, Gordon Jackson, again very familiar names if you follow any of the other race series on any of the other virtual cycling platforms that we cover. And Peter Austin there in the mix as well, so holding very well now, beginning to break the 50 kilometers an hour. So the red flashing that you see on that right hand burger menu, that is denoting a braking penalty. That happens in game in IndieVelo when you do not cease your pedaling and coast into either a flat or a downhill corner. So it's teaching you strong pedaling tactics for the outside world, for the real world, both for racing and for just general riding on a road bike. PDCC, Mark Glory taking the lead right now. Carl Tierney, and a little bit more of a peloton approach as well, evenly distributing the effort. As Ben Kirk, again a very familiar name if you follow other races, looking to catch on. He's really going to have to press through those crank arms to catch up now, however. I would assume in the real world, looking to get into the drops, push up out of the saddle and really stand through those crank arms. Really stretch that chain. Some good wattage coming out here. Mark Glory there getting that draft benefit, and you can see his numbers dropping back a bit where we had very fierce numbers before. But Ben is beginning to gain some ground, close that distance. And again, if we view that as a metaphor of an elastic band beginning to snap back to its relaxed state. But as I say that, that's keeping even right now, that distance. And there we go, it looks like he's ready to latch on like a fish taking the bait. And here we have France RGT, Denis Veron, currently on the lead. A little bit more conservative as we get into the climb here. On the speed, which is to be expected. And we've got Toto La Koala I'm assuming that is a made-up name for the virtual world. And Joe Vinois, both holding very consistent as they push through the climb here. OTR Wicked, a nice big triple T effort here. So team time trial, the rules here as set by OTR for the league is that third rider across the line sets time. So having a big team like this can help in getting the draft benefit, really pushing the team along, but not all of them have to cross the finish line to gain the secured time. So there are added benefits to having a nice big team here, but there can be some disadvantages. We can see there Sean Lavelle, another familiar name, currently taking the lead as they begin to crest out from this climb. 3R Wiggles, Frederic Foulon from Belgium, followed by Evan Ostenson and Jonathan Geddes. And we have somebody else who's fallen off the back here, Jonathan Stone, looking to catch on. And especially as this is coming out of a climb, this is going to take some additional effort to really push through those crank arms, really secure that tension through the chain to really get that wattage needed to latch on. But it looks like Jonathan is having no struggles right now, which is fantastic stuff. Holding some good wattage through the climb as well. Fantastic stuff as he eats away at that distance that lay between him and the three riders ahead in 3R Wiggles. Australia Wombats. We've got Jeff Tippett here. Again, very familiar names if you've followed Chase the Yellow. We've also got Kat Coleman, Peter Nutzeling, and Craig Dole. Keeping very tight together, again going for more of a peloton approach, a little bunchy, as they're trying to keep that wattage up, keep the speed numbers up going through the more conservative part of this little pinchy, punchy climb. But coming down the other side is OTR Eureka, the US team of OTR. And we can see Robin Steenhold here, pushing ahead, going to take that lead position. More of a paceline approach here. Great stuff, repositioning, ready for the engine position to be taken. Australia Koalas, the women's team. Melissa Fanning, Bryce Sturman, Michelle Williams and Wendy Gallagher. Again, very familiar names. It looks like we might be having a little bit of a technical there with, I think that's Michelle. Her avatar is not moving, although she could be cresting the downhill also. So 13 kilometers remaining, the time and the distance is being eaten away really fast. The numbers you see on the left hand side of your screen there, that is distance remaining, cumulative for each team, and that is obviously reducing to 0. And we're only a couple of kilometers away from beginning our 10-kilometer split, where we'll begin to show the stats of how things stack up halfway through today's race. Alright, so we're back with Electric Spirit Co. And we've got Matt James here taking the lead right now, regaining the tension through the chain that would have slackened off through the downhill and beginning to get those speed numbers back up, the all-important speed numbers. We're currently following Matt James, and we can see some very impressive wattage there as we're beginning to go into another short, pinchy, punchy climb. Look at that, almost cresting 500, breaking 500. As Seb really pushes ahead for the team, really getting through the crest of that short, sharp climb. Holding about an 80 RPM, which is very good for a climb. Getting up to 100, so must be in the small chainring in a fairly mid-sized gear, so about halfway up the cassette, to be able to hold a 100 cadence in a short, sharp climb like that. A sub 5. And as I say that, going into the 70 range, so clearly getting back into the big chainring and probably about halfway up that cassette. Matt James currently leading the team, beginning to drop back, so I assume he's going to change his position to be in one of the tail positions in the little pace line they have going there. But for OTR Black and for Dingoes, we've got Chris Morgan in the lead right now. Rob Drady, another familiar name to followers of the Australia teams. James Ogilvie in the lead right now. A little bit of a conservative speed as we get into the real passive part of the climb, arguably flattened out. But some phenomenal efforts here from all teams on the course today. You can also follow along our elevation profile by looking at the center bottom of your screen. That gray ghosted line or filled area that you see along the bottom of each screen, that is the elevation profile, but it's also the total course length. The checkered lollipop at the end, or circle at the end, that denotes, of course, our finish line. And the blue lollipop at the start denotes where we began. So you can follow along with where the climbs are, where the downhills are, simply by looking for the golden downward arrow. And OTR Wicked, again with this big team on course, I assume looking to really get that draft benefit number right up. Really rely on the power of numbers to really push the team along. But for the Wombats team, Jeff Tippett currently pushing along, getting that speed back up after the climb. And for 3R Wiggles, going back into a paceline formation as Jonathan Geddes takes the lead right now, with a repositioning just about to happen, and it looks like a total repositioning. Eureka, the US team of OTR, Rob Steinholt holding strong there. Looks like they're getting ready to switch positioning into arguably a bit of a pace line here to really propel themselves forward. So in but mere moments here, we should have our halfway split for how the numbers stack up as we get deeper into the race. And koalas here, they are sticking nice and closely together in more of that peloton formation, more of a spread out formation, coming through the tail of that climb, ready to hit the crest and descend. Good effort here, keeping nice and close together, keeping that draft benefit very much alive and well as they really crunch through the kilometers remaining. And you can actually follow along with draft benefit for the rider that we are currently following. So again, looking at that green highlight on that burger menu on the center right of your screen. And then look just above that to the soap bar window. You'll see the draft window. The more full up that is with green, the more that dial, if you will, is showing the amount of draft benefit. So the closer you're hugging into that rear wheel ahead of you, the more that bar will be filled up, and the further away you are, either to a side or behind, depending on the direction of the wind. And there is actually artificial intelligence in the game that directs where the wind direction is, and you can follow along that as well by again looking at that same top right hand side of your screen. Looking at that soap bar window, you see that white arrowhead that shows the direction of the speed, direction of the wind, and wind speed is denoted right next door to it, to its right. Right, here we are. So the 10-kilometer split, how are things stacking up? Well, let's look at our top 5. Electric Spirit Co. 13 minutes 30 seconds to cover the first 10 kilometers, a really phenomenal time. OTR Black 13 minutes 41. So do OTR Black stand the chance of usurping the team to beat this week? Time will tell. And in third place, Australia Dingoes 13:49, so 8 seconds behind OTR Black, 19 behind Electric Spirit Co. Then we have OTR Blue in the 4th place position, 13 minutes 58, so they are 28 seconds behind Electric Spirit Co. And in that 5th place position, OTR UV, 14 minutes 22 seconds to cover the first 10 kilometers. So with that said, let's jump back on in, take a look at how our teams are getting on. So Electric Spirit Co, Matthew Forshaw, who I've not seen take the lead, at least while we've been viewing them, is now currently the lead, looking again to get that speed up, having come through that climb, and they are doing so with ease as they ease back into that 0 percentile gradient and into a bit of a downhill here. And again, you can follow along the active percentile of gradient by looking once again in that top right hand corner of your screen, looking at the soap bar window, and to the far right of that window, the percentile that you see with that gradient symbol is of course the number of the percentile number of the climb. So any number that is above is of course a climb, any number with a minus is a downhill. So we have but 6 kilometers remaining and under now for those lead teams. And we are now following OTR Black. Tony Simons in the lead right now, really propelling the team along. Kevin Barkley hot on the rear wheel of Tony. And Keith Aitchison. Not a very Spanish name, but from Spain nonetheless. And here we're getting into one of those really pinchy climbs, going above 5%. Something that in a race on a road bike is really going to add a bit of a pinch to the quads. There we go, really propelling through it. We've got Australia Dingoes with some of those fiercest of Aussie riders: Chris Morgan, Scott Francis, Marco Murphy, Noel Holder, and Rob Drady. And Tony Lake in the lead right now for OTR UV. Frank Healy in there as well. And again, going for that shoulder-to-shoulder broad peloton approach so that they can evenly distribute the effort and somewhat evenly distribute the draft benefit too, as they hit that really, once again, pinchy, punchy climb, going above that 5% gradient. OTR UV, that's it lads, just foot over foot, pedal over pedal, and you'll get there. You'll crest to the zenith in no time at all. There we go, Roger Hughes of Wales really pushing the group ahead through the climb. Seeing some really good wattage numbers here as we're following Gordon Jackson. Really fast feet, as you can see through the animation of the avatar there for Gordon Jackson. So he must be in the small chain ring and a good way up the cassette towards the back of the cassette, or to put it another way, the larger gears on the cassette. PDCC with the Australia umbrella of teams. Toby Dew right now really pushing through that climb, making it look easy. However, the group is stretching out there. Looks like, I believe that's Peter Ridley and Ben Kirk have dropped off the back there. Quite a bit of time differential there for Ben Kirk. He looks like he's 1 minute and 6 seconds behind, which is a terrible shame. I know that Ben, having watched him in other races such as the aforementioned Chase the Yellow, is a phenomenal rider, so I'm wondering if a technical occurred there with his connectivity between his equipment and IndieVelo, which is a terrible shame when that happens. Denis Verreau. We've got Joel Vinoy, or Vigneault, sorry. I always keep forgetting how to pronounce those letters together. Vigneault, my apologies. Toto Lokoala. All pushing ahead fairly evenly, keeping a fairly even peloton there, a little bunchy between the three of them. And the big team, OTR Wicked, and Andrew Street is really pushing ahead right now. Really right on the tip of the spear, if you will, of the little pace line, arguably maybe a little bit more of a peloton as they push through the latter point of that climb. 3R Wiggles, of course, making it look easy out on course today. Frederic Villon of Belgium taking the lead through, again, the latter moments of our climb today. We've got one more big one coming up. I'm sure you spotted that on the elevation profile at the bottom of our window today. And that does look like the biggest and the longest one of the course. This may separate the rolliers from the sprinters, and time will find out. So if you're new to watching this and watching virtual racing and or cycling, there are essentially 3 ability levels of rider that are taken into account for racing, especially on road, and that is rollier, climber and sprinter. Rollier is your all-rounder, and then you've got your climber, who of course excels in climbing and those real high tension chain efforts. So also they will be good at endurance riding. And then you have the sprinters, and the sprinters may come into their own as we get into that finish line stretch. So we'll see which sprinters have been holding a little bit of that secret sauce back for the final couple to few hundred meters. And koalas here, we've got Michelle Williams currently taking the lead, Wendy Gallagher hot on her heels, as is Melissa Fanning and Bryce Sturman. Keeping nice and tight together, so the secret here is to really hold in for that draft benefit, really rest when you don't have to be the lead engine position in the group, so that you can regain your cardio effort, regain the effort through your muscles, not let the lactic acid get too solid and too heavy in the quads. Break them up, break up the lactic acid, my apologies, break up the pockets of lactic acid, I should say, by having somewhat faster feet and less chain tension by being in the draft benefit. And then you can retake your effort on the front, nice and rested, nice and ready to go. Electric Spirit Co. taking the lead today. They're 1 kilometer remaining, and that is denoted by the La Flamme Rouge, the red flame that we are currently approaching, literally red here, and that is an official denotation in the Grand Tours and other races of your 1 kilometer remaining distance. Normally not an actual flame in the real world, Normally just a balloon arch, or inflatable arch I should say, not a balloon arch. So we've got OTR Black and we have Australia Dingoes incredibly close to one another here. This is going to be a nail biter. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my quads, I should say, to be cycling accurate. So Electric Spirit Co here, yes, it looks like they're going in for the sprints. We can see there that Matt is at his optimal by looking at the notification light on the back of their bicycles, so they're not actually brake lights or rear lights. That shows when riders are optimal and suboptimal, green being optimal. And there we go. Keeping nice and close together to get the benefit of the third rider over the line not being too distant. Great effort there from Electric Spirit Co. So OTR Black, here's the nail biter against Australia Dingoes. They're rounding the same corner here, as you can see. And wowee, this is going to be a close one. I don't know about you, but I'm shuffling on my seat here, just watching it. Oh man, and everyone's going in for a sprint now. Oh, there were milliseconds in that, hundredths of a second, and we'll find out who that was claimed by in mere moments. OTR UV, they are cresting into the final few hundred meters, several hundred meters here, 800 meters remaining. Neil Walker currently pushing them ahead. Looks like he's going in for a very early sprint, which, I mean, well done, sir. I certainly am more of a 300 meter guy, 300 meter and less. PDCC just having crossed the Flamme Rouge. And likewise, France RGT. And OTR UV sub 400 meters. I mean, well done to Neil for being able to sprint for this long. Certainly, I know that I wouldn't have it in me. And we're following Tony Lake here as he's looking to close that gap with the rear wheel ahead and really make sure that 3 riders cross the line together. Although it does look like Frank Healy opened up a bit of a lead there, but there are microns of a second in that. So still a secured good time nonetheless. And Stephen Belliot coming in to break that finish line barrier first. PDCC also likewise coming in for that finish line. Everyone's so close to one another here. So Toby Dew crossing that finish line first, and again all 3 riders nice and close together as they are here in France RGT. And wowee, people are getting so good at being able to keep close to each other's times here across teams. Phenomenal stuff. OTR Wicked. Again, the big team here. It looks like we have broken into 2 teams. And we're following Andrew Street here. The team is staying nice and close together now that they know they're in proximity of that finish line. They're looking to secure that good time across the third rider rule. So now sub 300 meters, closing in that finish line. As we know from watching other teams, we just have to cross this corner and our finish line will be in sight as it is right now. Andrew Street currently pushing the team ahead, looking like they're sticking with an endured effort rather than sprints, and there's no shame in that. 3 riders crossing the line almost shoulder to shoulder, securing an almost entirely even time. 3R Wiggles, Jonathan Stone, Evan Erstenson, Frederick Villon, and Jonathan Guedes all crossing that line fairly close to one another. Australia Wombats. So it looks like Jeff Tippett is going in for that big sprint, really opening up a bit of tarmac between him and Craig behind. Certainly he had some of that secret sauce left to really propel him over that finish line. OTR Eureka, our American cousins. And there they are, just about to break the Flamme Rouge, breaking the 1 kilometer remaining mark. Keeping nice and stable and nice and close to one another here. Fairly good cadence similarity as well if you watch the animation on the avatars there. Australia Koala is beginning to ebb off their speed a little bit. I'm wondering if everything is okay, if they've maybe had a little bit of a technical. OTR Eureka again, closing in on that finish line, just about to crest half a kilometer remaining. So it looks like Stephen Elliott in the back there is beginning to pick up fast feet. Again denoted by the animation on his avatar. Whereas Jamie, who we're following, is staying fairly even around about that 80 RPM mark, so in a fairly high tension gear in the big chain ring. An educated examination or guess. And here we go, about to crest that finish line to secure their time. So 2.5 kilometers remaining for the final team to cross the finish line, and that is Australia Koalas. I think I see what's happening now with the animation on the avatar for Bryce Sturman. Bryce does not have a cadence meter connected, or there's some kind of communication issue. That's why the avatar is staying perfectly still, but yet there is still speed and power numbers coming out. So that really does mean that the animation is literally tied to the connection of a cadence meter, unlike other virtual cycling platforms where they will just throw out an animation even if you don't have one attached, but the animation will be more accurate if you do. So that is an interesting, and I think quite a nice feature of IndieVelo, where you really can tell the cadence of any rider by looking at their avatar. And the same there with who's that, Michelle, who is also, the avatar is also just freewheeling. So 1.3 kilometers remain. And as we cross the Flamme Rouge here, we will cut to our timed results from this week's Triple T. So again, this is season 2, week 2 here on IndieVelo. And we'll also show you the results from the prior week as they stand so far after we have seen the results from today. So the results from today. Let's see how things changed, if at all, from the 10 kilometer or halfway split. So again, remaining the team to beat is Electric Spirit Crew with 28 minutes, 19 seconds and 1/100th of a second to cross the 20.3 kilometers of course today. OTR Black, they are at 28 minutes 54 seconds and 200th of a second, and only 700th of a second behind them and between OTR Black and themselves is Australia Dingoes. So remember, we were looking at that nail-biting sprint for the finish line between OTR Black and Australia Dingoes. Only 700th of a second is in it. That is absolutely phenomenal stuff there from both teams. So 28 minutes, 54 seconds, 900th of a second for Australia Dingoes to cover 20.3 kilometers. OTR UV in that 4th place position, so they have flipped around their placement from the halfway split with OTR Blue. So OTR UV secured a time of 30 minutes, 11 seconds and half a second. Then we have OTR Blue. They dropped down to that 5th place position, rounded out our top 5 for 30 minutes, 25 seconds and 1/10 of a second. Wow, what a phenomenal set of team time trial it has been today. So let's jump on over and take a look at the results as they stand from last week. So we can really see the fruits of the labour of Electric Spirit Co. there as they stand with the most amount of points so far, 10 points. Australia Dingoes and OTR Black are neck and neck with 7 points apiece, and bearing in mind this is from last week's Triple T, so we'll see how today's race affected things. France RGT with 3 points in League 1. OTR Ultraviolet or UV, they are in that red position, which means that they are in that contention for demotion to League 2, where Race 3R Wiggles are currently the one to beat with 7 points, the green denoting that they are up for promotion. WLVR, they are in that red place in the League 2, where they are ripe for demotion with 3 points. And then up for promotion from League 3 is Australia Wombats with 8 points. So, wow, what a wonderful series it is proving to be so far. And if you missed WLVR, as that was unfortunately not recorded for today's race, so stay tuned to the Facebook page and you'll be able to see the results from this week as we post all the results. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to bring commentary today to you on week 2, season 2 of Triple T Team Time Trial. Thank you for joining us. My name's been Mark. You've been a wonderful audience. Have a wonderful day.